Here we are in my studio, Burbank, California. This is the first of a multi-part series called Anatomy of a Photo Shoot or a Film Shoot. Got my friend Brandon Sanborn here,
Howdy.
who's modeled for me before. We made some cool pictures last year.
Yep.
So with Halloween coming up, I thought we would do a Halloween themed photo shoot. We have a couple of Halloween themed psycho killer weapons. We have a couple of masks. What I've got lighting us here is Light My 2L. We've got a quasar tube as fill in front. And then I have these two Yongnuo light sticks in the back for kicking and fill. And we're just going to shoot a bunch of photos, try a couple of different lighting setups, try a few costumes, and see what we get. So that is our first anatomy of a photo shoot. Brandon here, the Axeman cometh. We had a really good time. Thank you to Nicole for operating the iPhone behind the scenes. Brandon's students will probably be a lot more obedient in class now.
I agree.
All right, moving on to post-production. So here we are in Photoshop. This is the best of the psycho killer images. So I'm going to take and try and turn this into something that could be a horror poster. First thing I want to do is work out what I'm going to actually use of this image. I do want the end of the machete, but I don't necessarily want all this blank space. So it's going to crop in here. Then I have to deal with all this kind of crap at the bottom. I'm going to grab my lasso tool, circle this, hit Shift F5 for content aware fill, and Photoshop does a pretty good job of guessing what could be there. As you see, it's not perfect, so then I'll just change over to my got my clone stamp, paint that out, paint this out. Okay, so the first thing I want to do image-wise is add a gradient map. Where are we? So you're gonna have to bear with me today because typically I have all these as automatic actions, but if I do it that way, it's not going to help anyone because they're all customized and they're things I've set up previously. So it'd just be me clicking a couple of buttons. It will take me a little bit longer than it normally takes me to do a post edit on this, but I think we'll be okay. So we've added a gradient map. We've got it set to black and white. You can see now if I change this to luminosity, straight away I've got a lot more punch, a lot more contrast. I don't like his hair is so bright up there. So what I'm going to do is add a curve, pull it where I would like the hair, somewhere there. Then hit Command I to invert the curve, get my brush in white, and now paint the curve back. Yeah, That's kind of cool. The good thing about doing it like that is that I can keep dragging this down. And then I might hit a hue and saturation, take that down. I just really want to lose it out of the redness of his hair, so now I'm gonna hit Command Shift E. I just work like this. I just sort of, as I go, fold the layers down. It's not the way everyone works, but it just means I just like it because it's faster. And very rarely do I have to start over. But the next problem we have is his eyes, because there's not very much scary going on when you can see his eyes. So I'm going to hit Command Shift N, make a new layer. Going to get my brush in here, hold down Z and push the Wacom tablet in to zoom in. I'm just going to mask out these eyes here. Hit Shift for another one because I have them on the same layer. And Option Alt backspace to delete. Let's blur these. Not that much. Maybe 7. Okay. And then I'm going to drop the opacity down. So you can kind of see something, but you kind of can't. That's cool. That's a lot scarier in my mind. Okay. Now we want to get into the color. So I'm going to hit color balance, and I definitely want to cool down my shadows. So that's pretty cool. Then, because I don't want the whole thing to be blue, I'm going to warm up the midtones. Take it away from the green. And in the shadows, in the highlights, do the same thing. So we're kind of bringing. That's kind of cool. Now, the next thing I want to fix is his skin tone, which is still too warm in my eye. So let's hit another hue saturation. Let's select the skin tone and then just drop the saturation. You can see that's the kind of color that I'm working with. Let's leave that for now. Let's leave that red and then just bring down the saturation. What's wrong? Not so much. Okay, I like that. I'm going to try and correct the vignette on this side over here now. Let's bring this down. Oh, that's interesting. This is going to be my darker layer. Let's invert that. And then at 60%, put this underneath hue saturation, underneath the color balance. So that's what is being corrected as well. Just sort of manually vignette this. A bit more on the hands. Shift, Option, Command E makes a new layer that's everything above combined with the first. The next thing I want to fix is his face, because I don't like this asymmetry of the nose piece in this. But what I might do is bring up a new layer, just select black again, come down here and then just start to paint out. So go into 30%. These highlights, so that there's not as much distracting from the actual thing itself, from the face itself. I guess with horror, what makes it work is what you don't see. I'm going to run down to 10 now, start to paint out that highlight. Just anything that's super shiny and distracting. That's a lot cooler. maybe a little off those buttons. Let's go to Psycho Killers. A little off this chest and off the neck. Let's go up to 20. It's not doing enough. That one's kind of cool. Just a little. Now I think we've taken too much off, so I'm going to add a new layer. So to overlay, fill it with a neutral color, and then I'm going to paint in white to sort of bring out, and you can see here, if I was to turn this back to normal, you can see it's just sort of like little pieces here, little dabs of white that are going to bring up those highlights in the mask that I want with that. That's pretty cool. That's kind of distracting. Hit X. Ooh. Make that zipper down. Hit X back to white. I definitely want the machete. Let's get that. The hand's kind of cool too. Yeah, that's awesome. It's just basically adding punch to the image. So my histogram is still really dark. I think what I can do is, let's collapse these layers. Go into camera raw and bring up the clarity, maybe bring up the vibrance a little. Shadows, those blacks, and then sharpness would be great too. About 36%. So that's looking really cool now. Let's do it with curves. Let's do a RGB curve. Just really make it pop here. Then we'll go to our green. Wow, it's subtle, isn't it? And that blue. I guess what I'm doing in this one is just trying to, again, add some punch, add some contrast, so everything's not way back when, and then also add some interest to the image. Pretty simple setup. It's like, was it one light and a fill from below. Done it with a pretty cool, threatening thing. I mean, we really didn't spend a lot of time or attention on wardrobe. But it's just sort of what he brung along and what I had hanging around, and out of it we're able to make something pretty scary. Thanks for watching, guys. See you next time.